Some people introduce themselves with their job title. Some start with where they're from, or what school they went to, or their favorite band. Me, I could tell you that I'm 33, that I like black coffee, jazz, rainy nights, and the smell of old bookstores. But none of that really matters, because I think the only real way to know someone is to know what broke them. And if I'm being honest, I've been broken so many times, I lost track of which version of me I was supposed to protect. My name is Julian, and a year ago, I tried to kill myself. But this story isn't about that. It's about what happened after. It's about the woman who stopped me, and how she slowly, patiently, destroyed me in ways I didn't even see coming. But before all of that, before the darkness, before the unraveling, I want to take you back to where it started. Not at the edge of a bridge, but a few days earlier, when everything still felt almost normal. At the time, I was living in a small apartment above a laundromat. My walls smelled like detergent and humidity. I worked night shifts at a 24-hour diner, serving pancakes to people too drunk or too lonely to go home. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid just enough to keep the lights on and the fridge humming. I was invisible, and to be honest, I preferred it that way. I had this routine: wake up at 5 p.m., eat toast I didn't finish, put on the same faded jacket, walk 3 blocks, headphones in, no eye contact. Repeat. It was the kind of life where nothing bad really happened anymore, but nothing good did either. Then came that night. I'd been staring at the ceiling for hours, brain buzzing with static. I couldn't sleep, couldn't breathe properly, couldn't even cry. You know that feeling when you're underwater in a dream, but you're awake? That was me. Alive, technically, but sinking slowly. So I left my apartment. I walked. Didn't bring my phone, didn't lock the door. Somehow, I ended up at the old bridge near the edge of the city. It was quiet there. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that dares you to speak. I didn't think of anything dramatic. No flashbacks, no cinematic goodbye. Just exhaustion. I walked to the edge, hands in my pockets, 1 foot up on the railing. And then, a voice behind me. "Hey, is the view better up there?" It was soft, playful, not what you'd expect when someone's about to jump. I turned my head. She was standing a few steps behind, dark coat, hands in her pockets, like this was just another stroll in the night. I didn't say anything. "You look like you're either really deep in thought or about to make a very bad decision," she said. Still, I was silent. She took a step closer. "Sorry, that was a weird thing to say. I come here sometimes too, not to jump, just to watch the water." Her name was Marla, and in that moment, she was a stranger, a strange stranger. But she didn't ask me what was wrong. She didn't give me some cliché line about life being worth living. She just stood there, like she had nowhere better to be. And somehow, that made me pause. That was the first night I met her, the night that saved me. Or I thought it did. I didn't know it yet, but Marla wasn't just there to save me. She was there to claim me. Marla wasn't like anyone I'd ever met. She didn't ask too many questions. She didn't fill silences just to make them comfortable. She let the quiet sit with us, like an old friend we both trusted. That night after the bridge, we walked, for hours. She told me stories that didn't feel like stories, about her favorite street lamp in the city, how she hated the sound of metal zippers, and how she once spent an entire year pretending to be someone else just to see if anyone would notice. "Did they?" I asked. She smiled. "Not really." We ended up at a diner at 4 a.m., sharing burnt toast and watery tea. We didn't talk about death, or pain, or trauma, not directly. But in the way she looked at me when I zoned out mid-sentence, I knew she saw it all. The next few days felt like standing in the sun after a long winter. Marla would text me at odd hours. "Wake up, There's fog, and I want to see it. Do you believe birds know when they're flying over sad people? You need soup. Come over. I never said no, not once. She lived in an apartment near the train tracks. Top floor, no elevator. Her place smelled like cinnamon and something herbal I could never identify. Plants everywhere. No TV. The first time I stayed over, I remember thinking, this woman lives like she's already made peace with loneliness. I don't know when we started calling it love. There wasn't a grand confession. No, I love you over candlelight. One day I woke up with my head on her shoulder and her fingers tracing my wrist like she was counting my pulse. And I realized, this is the safest I've ever felt, even if I didn't understand why. Weeks passed. I quit my job at the diner. Marla said it was toxic. She said I was more than that place. You're meant for something else, Julian. I don't know what yet, but not that. I believed her. She believed in me harder than I ever had. She helped me apply for remote writing gigs, fixed my resume, rearranged my room, threw out old photos and clothes I didn't know I was still keeping out of guilt. This version of you, she said, doesn't need reminders of who you used to be. We moved in together 2 months later. It felt fast, but also right at first. She made our home feel intentional. Every object had a place. Every place had a rule. I didn't notice it at first, how precise things became. If I moved a mug from one shelf to another, she would gently put it back. If I forgot to light the incense in the evening, she'd do it silently, smiling, though her jaw stayed clenched. She told me when to eat, when to sleep, when to disconnect from noise and leave my phone in the drawer for hours. You need boundaries, Jules. Your mind is like a sponge, too porous, too absorbent. She wasn't wrong. I told myself this was healing, structure, rhythm, stability. But some nights, I'd wake up to find her standing at the foot of the bed, just watching me. She'd smile when I opened my eyes and whisper, "You were twitching again." When I asked what she meant, she'd shrug. "Nightmares," she said. "It's okay, I keep track of them." She kept a journal. I never read it. She told me not to. Said it was for her thoughts, her therapy. I respected that. Until one night, I saw my name written over and over again across a single page. Same handwriting, same ink. Dozens of times. Julian, 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 Julian. I didn't ask. She didn't explain. I told myself it was just a phase, that love sometimes looks like obsession when it's really just passion. But I think, deep down, a part of me already knew. She saved me, I kept saying. But what I should have asked was, from what? And more importantly, what did she plan to do with me now that she had me?
It started with little things. The lights had to be dimmed at exactly 7 p.m. The curtains closed before the sun dipped completely. No news channels, no sad music, no clutter on the kitchen counter. At first, I thought it was just preference. People have their habits, rituals. Marla was meticulous, so what? But then the rules grew sharper, less like comfort, more like commandments. I wasn't allowed to drink coffee after 3 p.m. No shoes in the house, except mine. She kept hers on. I had to log my food, even though she never said why. My calls had to be on speaker if she was around. When I asked about these things, she would tilt her head and say, "You said you needed structure. I'm giving you what you asked for." Except I never did. Not with words, anyway. She began waking me with a gentle shake and a notebook. "Write what you dreamt," she'd say, every morning. She'd hand me the pen before I could speak. The pages started filling with nonsense, shapes, colors, flashes of drowning, falling, glass breaking. She kept all of them. I never saw them again. I stopped seeing my friends, not because I didn't want to, but because they stopped reaching out. Messages went unanswered. My phone was always off or lost or getting repaired. Emails went to spam. Notifications vanished before I could check them. When I mentioned it, Marla would stroke my cheek and whisper, "The world out there never cared for you like I do." And I believed her, because that's what happens when you're drowning. You mistake the first hand that grabs you as salvation, even if it's dragging you under. One night, I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize myself. I wasn't thinner, I wasn't bruised, but I looked small, like someone had taken a photograph of me and drained the contrast. I moved slower, spoke less, forgot words I used to love, laughed only when she laughed first. She gave me pills, not prescribed, just natural stabilizers, she said. I never asked what was in them. I just took them, because routine is seductive, especially when it's disguised as recovery. I began hearing things. A clock ticking when no clock was near. My name being called faintly from another room. The sound of breathing behind closed doors. Once I swore I saw her outside the apartment through the window, just standing, staring up at me, when I knew she was inside the kitchen. When I turned, the kitchen was empty. Sleep became unreliable. When I did dream, it was always the same. A red door, a locked journal, a woman humming while sewing shut her own mouth. When I told Marla, she smiled. "You're processing." I wanted to leave once. I packed a bag while she was asleep. But halfway through the hallway, I realized I didn't remember where my wallet was, or my ID, or my keys, or even the last time I had money of my own. She held all of it. When I returned, she was awake. She didn't ask where I'd gone. She just hugged me tightly, buried her face in my neck, and said, "I'm proud of you for staying." I cried. Not because I was moved, but because I didn't feel real anymore. The worst part wasn't that I was being controlled. The worst part was that part of me liked it. When your mind is a war zone, sometimes you mistake silence for peace. And she gave me that silence, in exchange for everything else. One day, while cleaning, I found a small notebook wedged behind the dresser. It wasn't labeled. Just plain black leather with no markings. I opened it. Inside were pages and pages of notes. Not about dreams, not about her. They were about me. Subject became emotionally dependent in 11 days. Response to mild isolation, compliant. Language softened after third week of dietary shift. No resistance to boundaries. Reinforce with validation phrases. Eye contact decreasing, vocal pitch lower, ideal. I turned page after page, hands shaking. I wasn't her husband. I was a case study. That night, I lay beside her and pretended to sleep. Her hand found mine under the blanket. She squeezed gently, like a signal. And I wondered, not for the first time, if I screamed, would anyone even hear it through the walls she built around me?
I used to think madness crept in slowly, that it was something that bloomed over time, quiet, silent, almost poetic. But the truth is, sometimes it arrives all at once, like a room you thought was empty, suddenly flicking on all the lights, revealing how long the rot had been there. That morning, the light came from a wrong number. It was a message, just a string of words, no name, no punctuation. "You're not the first." My stomach turned. I checked the number, unregistered, gone when I tried to reply. I didn't tell Marla. I couldn't. That day, I waited for her to leave for her yoga class. She never invited me, said it was her sanctuary. But I knew she was gone for 2 hours, exactly, every Tuesday. I used that time to search. I didn't even know what I was looking for, just that something had been whispering to me for weeks, "You're missing something important." I started in her closet. Too neat, no dust, not even enough clothes for someone who lived here full time.
Then the kitchen. Top shelf, a locked box. I didn't try to open it yet. But in the bedroom, behind a drawer, I found something better. A photograph. Faded, folded, torn at the corner. It showed Marla, same sharp eyes, same half smile, but younger, and not alone. There were two men beside her. One of them looked familiar. Not from real life, but from a photo I'd seen online once. I rushed to my old laptop, hidden in a shoebox under the bed. No password on it. She probably forgot it existed. The internet was slower than I remembered. It took an hour of digging, but eventually I found what I was looking for. An obituary. Dr. Lyle Heron, 46, clinical psychologist, died under suspicious circumstances. Survived by a sister, Miriam Heron. Marla. Her real name was Miriam. I froze. The photo from the article, it was him. One of the men standing beside her in the photograph I found. She said she didn't have family. She said she never liked doctors. And yet, there she was, smiling beside one. Her brother. There were more hits. Blog posts, forums, men, anonymous, using aliases, talking about someone who fit her exact description. She meets you when you're vulnerable. She saves you. She studies you, and when you're fully hers, she pulls away everything that made you who you were. One of them called her a reverse Frankenstein. She doesn't build you, she disassembles you, piece by piece, until you forget how to be anything but hers. That night, I didn't sleep. I laid next to her, eyes wide, heartbeat ragged. And then, she whispered, half asleep, "You're getting quiet again." I didn't reply. She pulled herself closer, rested her head on my chest, and said something that chilled me more than anything else that day. They never last this long. The next morning, I left. No bag, no phone, no plan. Just my body, my legs, and a single address I remembered from the message thread I'd copied off one of the blogs. It was a man named Connor. He lived 2 cities over, had posted about her years ago, claimed she ruined his life. I showed up unannounced. He didn't open the door at first. When he finally did, he didn't speak, just stared at me like he'd seen a ghost. "You're with her," he whispered. I nodded. He let me in. His apartment was dim, curtains closed, air heavy. He poured 2 drinks, sat down across from me. "She ruined me," he said, "but not with lies. That's the worst part. She ruins you with truth. She tells you what you already fear about yourself, and then builds your entire life around it. She makes your weaknesses feel like home." I asked about her brother. Connor flinched. He tried to get her help, he said, years ago. She turned it into a game, gaslighted him until even he didn't trust his own thoughts. He wrote letters, files. I have one. He pulled out a box. Inside, papers, photos, even therapy logs. And there, in a folder labeled Subject 3, was my name. I ran, all the way to the train station. I didn't stop to think, didn't stop to breathe. I was still holding the folder. Back at the apartment, I stood outside the door. It was cracked open. She was waiting. Calm. No panic. No rage. Just a smile. "You came back," she said softly. "Of course you did."
The folder felt heavier than it should have. Maybe because it held everything I never wanted to be true. Proof that I wasn't loved. I was documented, observed, measured, reduced. And yet, I stepped through the door. Marla was sitting on the couch, barefoot, legs tucked beneath her like it was any ordinary evening. "You came back," she said again, as if I'd just stepped out for milk. "Of course you did." I didn't speak. She patted the space next to her. I didn't move. Her eyes dropped to the folder in my hands. She smiled, not surprised. "Connor talks too much. I always said he'd break pattern, but you," she looked proud, "you're different. You made it further than the others." My voice finally found its way through my throat. "What am I to you?" She blinked, like it was a ridiculous question. "You're mine." I should have left. Should have walked out, called the police, burned everything behind me. But she had a gravity to her, something that bent logic. I sat down. She began to talk, not like a confession, but like a lecture she'd given before. "I don't hurt people, Julian. I offer them a mirror. Most people go through life lying to themselves. I just take away the blindfold." I opened the folder. Pages of notes, behavioral patterns, emotional reactions, charts mapping my moods, footnotes in red ink. I was a lab rat, a long-term project. "You wanted to die," she said quietly. "Don't you remember? I gave you a reason not to." "You gave me a cage." She tilted her head. "No, I gave you a shrine. I made you sacred. Don't confuse structure with prison." Her hands reached toward mine. I pulled away. "Why me?" She smiled. "Because you were ready to be rewritten. Others resist, others fight. You surrendered, and it was beautiful." Silence stretched between us like barbed wire. Then I said the words I didn't even know were forming. "I want out." She didn't flinch. She only nodded. "Then you know what comes next." She stood, walked into the bedroom, left the door open. I followed. On the bed, a small black box. Inside, my ID, my phone, my wallet. Your name, your history, your lines. She slid the box toward me. "Take them. Be whole again, if that's what you really want." I hesitated, then picked it up. She didn't stop me. She only watched. As I walked toward the door, I heard her voice behind me. Soft, measured. "Just know, when it falls apart again, when the world turns its back, you'll come looking for someone like me. And next time, she won't be as gentle." I didn't reply, didn't look back. The door clicked shut behind me, but the silence screamed. 3 months later, I moved 2 states over, rented a small place by the coast, worked in a bookstore, slept better, ate real food, talked to people. For a while, I felt normal, even hopeful. But her voice lived in the back of my mind, the phrasing, the rhythm, the programming. Every time I hesitated at a crosswalk, every time I reached for a familiar mug, every time someone looked at me too long, I heard her whisper, "You're mine." One night I had a dream. She was sitting by the ocean, writing in that journal. Every word was my name. When I woke up, I was crying. Not because I missed her, but because a part of me still wanted to go back. That's what she built. Not a home, but a dependency. Not love, but a loop. I burned the folder. I deleted everything. But some things can't be erased. They live inside you, like old songs or trauma. Or her. Last week I saw a man on a bench, head low, shoulders sunken, and next to him, a woman. Not Marla, but something about her posture, her voice, her gaze. It felt trained. I walked past, didn't speak. But the man looked up for a second, and in his eyes, I saw myself from 6 months ago. Raw, grateful, lost. I didn't stop him, didn't warn him, because I knew he wouldn't believe me, just like I wouldn't have. You don't recognize the devil when she's the one who saves you. She saved my life, And then she handed me a slow, beautiful death, dressed as love.
If this story gripped you, you know what to do. Subscribe to Burned by Love. More dark truths and twisted love stories await. Until then, be careful who you let save you.